Hello and welcome back. This is Gilda Vander Hayden, and I have with me today on our next episode of the Work-Life Balance Equation, Ms. Sarah Lett from Front Porch Properties, and she runs the entire operations in Boise, Idaho. So, Sarah, welcome. I'm so glad you're able to join us and talk about all things work-life balance.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Is there anything else around your background you wanted to share? Otherwise, we're just going to kind of dive into some of the questions.
Sure. Yeah. So I can kind of give like a brief overview of how I got into real estate, into the role, and kind of how I evolved. I'm definitely was previously in like my childhood days a very timid and shy, quiet person and really wanted to blend in. So my dad fixed that for me by pushing me into joining the military directly out of high school. So I left for basic training like 5 days after I graduated from high school, and just was kind of like launched into the military background, which my dad was in the military for 20 years too. So I was super used to it. So I went into basic training, did the whole tech school thing, and I actually was in the military for 6 years. I got out as a staff sergeant.
Ooh.
My role in the Air Force was I loaded bombs and ammo on the A-10.
Wow.
So it was like our field was nicknamed weapons just because we covered the whole entire weapons program from top to bottom, as far as like electrically, mechanically, and then actually doing the grunt work of putting the bombs and ammo onto the plane. And then we would be at the end of the runway, like launching the plane off and being the last one to pull all the pins and arm everything up. So it was a really, really cool job. I got to travel the whole entire world. I was young, dumb, and single. So I volunteered for every single deployment, every single trip. So I got to get so much life experiences from 17 years old and on. So I just kind of got it all dumped on me in a short amount of time. So I guess you could say I matured pretty quickly. By the time I was in Iraq and Kuwait and everything else and coming back home to my home state of Boise, Idaho, my friends from high school were just completing their first degree and were still living with mom and dad and, you know, doing all those kind of things. And I was like, okay. So so it kind of projected me forward. I'm definitely a chameleon because at the same time I was in the Air Force, I was also getting my college degree in like art. So I really love art and designing, photography, just anything super creative. And then because I just didn't have enough on my plate, I was also like moonlighting as a barista at a couple different coffee shops.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm super social. I'm super detail oriented. And I'm creative. So I just kind of have a lot of different facets. So while I got out of the military, I met my husband in Kuwait, actually. He's from Mississippi, and we both just happened to be stationed in Kuwait. We met each other, fell in love, got married, blah, blah, blah. We had 2 kids. So I have an 8 and a 10-year-old.
Okay.
And after I got out of the military in 2010, I was really trying to find a career that still kind of fulfilled my need to feel like I was giving back to my community. So I just wasn't sure what that looked like for the longest time. So I got hired at like the local post office. So I was like a clerk and doing stuff in the background. And then eventually it was like a rural route driver. So I was actually on the road delivering mail. That wasn't really filling that need for me. I was very alone, 90% of the day in a vehicle by myself. So it just didn't fit what I needed. So then I got hired at the local power company, where I was like the call center representative. So I had like 3 computer screens going up at one time, taking, hundreds of phone calls a day, and just having to do billing and all this other kind of stuff while. So it was a lot of multitasking all at once. So then I learned phone skills and multitasking on the computer at a really high level. And while I was doing that job, I met Van States, which is now my team leader. And he saw my potential, I guess you could say, in just all those different avenues.
Yeah.
And he was like, have you ever thought about being in real estate? And I said, no. Hard no. Like that just, when I thought of real estate, I just thought of like, that's not a consistent paycheck. I can't afford to do that. Like, no. But he pressed on it and he was like, I think you have the perfect personality type. And you can handle a lot of different things. So let's talk more.
Yeah.
And I ended up coming over as like a phone call person, but he again saw that I had more potential for that. So my role evolved into running the transactions and then now just running operations altogether.
Oh, that is I'm so glad you filled that in, Sarah, because I did not know that about you. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I was thinking when you were describing what you were doing with deploying the bumps, I'm like, that's kind of a stressful situation. And that didn't really phase you at all.
There were a few, surprisingly, after 6 years of doing it, there were only a couple of super close calls that I should not be here anymore. But I think God definitely had a hand over the situation and nothing happened. So besides that, everything was, I mean, you have to follow so many different rules and checklists and really, really attention to detail. So I think that's where that definitely instilled everything in my life, because attention to detail wasn't just like a job thing. It was like to save your life. So it was definitely important.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, maybe we'll definitely have to catch up another time. Because I'm like, I'm going to talk to you about all kinds of stuff that I promised everybody we'd be talking about, work-life balance and things of that nature. So, and that's great that you shared the context of, you've been in the military, the office world, customer service and creative and all this cool stuff. So it's kind of neat to see you in a role where it's maximizing all your talents and skills, which is awesome. So with all, and I don't know, maybe it changed along the way. Was there ever a point in time when you felt more like you had work-life balance under control, depending on what environment you were in? And do you feel like you have it today, or has it been something that sort of emerged over time? Like what part of your life did you start to feel like you had the balance, and kind of maybe give people an idea of, if you didn't have it in the beginning, how did you end up getting there?
Gotcha.
In terms of like tips or tools and things of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, definitely before, when I was in the military and just doing that on a daily basis, it's a very much like, as soon as you drive off the base, you're able to just turn it off. And you don't even have to think about it again until you drive back onto the base the next morning. So that was a very easy on, easy off kind of situation. And at that time, I mean, I was debt free. I was single. I was just living with my girlfriends. Like, work-life balance wasn't even a thought process back then.
Fair enough, yeah.
I would say once I got married, I mean, let's all be honest, that's pretty much like having your first child, is like figuring things out with a husband and partner, of like setting all that up. And then especially once we have kids, my husband and I were very, very adamant that while we absolutely love our children, our world wasn't going to revolve around them. It was teaching them how to have their own like work-life balance as well. And we always tell them, your job is to be a kid and have fun and go to school. And so that's their job. And then we have our jobs that we have to do to provide for them, so they have a home and food and all that kind of stuff. So we set it up pretty early on. So I would say that I didn't really get into a stride of having really focusing on what that even meant for me until the last few years of my life, honestly, up until recently. Because now that they're I feel like there's a difference between when your kids are toddlers
Mm-hmm.
and now when they're starting to like do all the activities and all the
Right.
appointments and running them around, and you're having to be a like taxi cab driver too on top of your own job. So that definitely didn't start evolving and getting into place until pretty recently, like I would say within the past year to 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, that's good. And that's, I like how you and your husband were very intentional that, of course the kids are important, but they're not going to rule your world or rule really the marriages. Cause I know oftentimes that's what happens.
Right.
And sometimes a lot of those marriages don't last. So that's
Right.
awesome that you established that from the get-go.
Yeah. We actually have this really cool, I can't remember where I originally thought of the like everything in life is kind of like a rip off and duplicate for something else that you've previously seen, and how you kind of can morph it into your own life to make it work better.
Oh, interesting.
So I found this concept and kind of morphed it into my own little family. My kids are very like task oriented. And they love the satisfaction of helping and knowing that they're doing things too.
Yeah.
So we created this, and it's a daily thing in our home. They each have this little glass. Like I've just used like an old small drinking glass. So they each have their own glass, and they each have, I just went to like the craft store and got like the big popsicle sticks, like the big thick ones.
Yeah.
And there's a chore written on every single popsicle stick. And that's something like that they have to do every single morning to get ready for school. So they have their responsibility every single morning. They go into the pantry, they grab their glass, they lay out all their popsicle sticks on a line on the like kitchen counter. And as they do them, they get to pick them up and put them in the glass. And I don't know if it's like a weird like textile or audible thing, but they just love the sound that it makes when they clink it into the cup. But that's like their job. They know that they are responsible for doing all of those sticks every single morning. And while it gives me the time to get ready myself without getting distracted 1,000 times, it allows my husband to be on his conference calls in the morning that he has, because he works, like he has a bunch of stuff on the East Coast. So it just gives everybody a purpose and a really set mission every single morning. It sounds very military, but it works. Yeah. And they love doing it. And we know that, every time in the morning I say, hey, have you done your sticks? And they're like, yep, all done. Or, oh, I've got a few left, and they're just laying there. So
and they're just like
really nicely.
Different little chores that need to be done, like trash or emptying dishwasher, those kinds of things. Yeah. And do they rotate, or do you give rewards or anything?
No. We don't like pay for allowances yet. With like my son at 10 years old really loves vacuuming. So that's like his go-to chore. My daughter likes cleaning the bathroom with like those wipes and stuff. So we just tell them that that's their payment of being able to live in our house.
Oh, I like that. I like that attitude. Really great.
But to us, that's teaching, ownership of what their responsibilities and roles are in the house at a really young age. And they've thrived on it. It's definitely helped the morning routines and everything go a lot better too.
Oh, I love that. And I'm just curious, I don't know if you have any friends, Sarah, that are single moms at all, but I just recently met one, and I'm curious for any single parents out there. Do you have any specific advice for, I mean, obviously it's a great one of just getting your kids to help, and instead of you doing everything, that would be one, but is there any other strategies that you use you think would be helpful for even both for full parent sets as well as for single parents?
Yeah, I mean, for a short period of time, I was single momming it because my husband was deployed for like the first few. I think he left when our son was like 3 months old. So I was single momming it while working at the post office, like ridiculous hours, like having to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and not getting home until really late at night. It was just really weird and awful. But the one thing that just saved us every single time, even moving forward to now, is just having that set schedule. I mean, I feel like kids especially just thrive on schedule and feeling like they're contributing. Like we've always made it like making them feel like they're included and that they have a purpose within the family too. I've just so many times we have kids, like our friends will be like, can you take our kids and train them how you do these things? Like, so they're like, go to Sarah and Lucian's house because they know that we're like, hey, we're putting dishes away. You guys take care of the silverware. Like this is a group family thing here. It's not just a, you know, I don't know. We always try to, even with work, when I have like things with work that we have to do, like go put signs or a lockbox out on a property out in the rural area, we all go and do it as a family.
Really?
So everything is very family involved. And if you're going to live in our house, you're going to help.
Oh, I love that. Wow. And so you started this from day, like since they were toddlers, really?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I always, another thing that, I mean, I don't know how much of it helps, but I've had a bunch of other friends take the same idea. You know how like in a kitchen, they have all the different drawers that like under your cabinet kind of thing. We always made 2 drawers in the house, in the kitchen, the kid drawers. Like that's where their plates and cups and everything else go. So like all the plastics and stuff go down there. And that was their job. And the dishwasher was putting their own dishes away in their bins. Of course, it's not going to be like OCD level putting it away, but like they know that that's their spot. And I have so many other friends that do the same thing now. And it just helps all the way around for multiple different reasons.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then in terms of like your day-to-day, whether it's the work or the personal, are there any specific tools that you're finding to be helpful with time management or just being more effective or efficient? And it sounds like this is all up your alley, Sarah, being in operations and having the military background. I'm like, that's why you seem to like really have it all together.
Oh gosh. Well, definitely I would never say I'm like a professional in it, because I know some people that just put me to shame. But I obviously having like a extremely supportive, understanding spouse makes a massive difference.
Oh yeah.
We definitely have our routine of, because we live a little bit further out from the kids' school and from work. So my husband works from home. And like I mentioned earlier, he, with his work, he tends to have conference calls early in the morning to like the first, like to the middle of the day. So I do school drop off. So I take the kids in the morning, drop them off at school, and then he does school pickup. Because my late afternoons tend to be busier than his. So we just balance out, hey, this works better for my schedule. That works better for yours. So we balance those kinds of things out. So we're constantly in communication, as you have to be, of like, hey, I'm covering this today, or hey, I have an appointment. Can you do pickup today? Vice versa. We have calendars like everywhere. So Van always taught us, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. I think that goes for everything. I mean, obviously, how are you supposed to communicate with your spouse on all the different things that you're supposed to do within your family or for work if it's not clearly set? So everybody has the same expectation of what has to be done in one day. And that it's not just a last minute thing of, oh, hey, by the way, I have an appointment today. It's a far in advance acknowledgement of what everything needs to be done.
Okay, awesome. And then when you find yourself getting off track, are there anything that kind of, well, again, let's just remember most people don't have the military background. So maybe for you, it might come naturally. You just, okay, you're off track. Hey, you get your discipline. But I guess just remember most people are not like you. So is there anything that helps you, or maybe friends of yours that were not in the military, that you would advise them to help keep them on track? especially if they're not focusing on their priorities.
Yeah. And I have down days all the time too of like, I don't know, you just kind of get in that slump and
Yeah.
you just feel like, wow, I feel like I blinked and 2 weeks have gone by and I just feel
Yeah.
like so unproductive or like what is going on. So I always have to try to find my center again. So I have like my own tricks of what I know work really well for me, of what make me like really happy and make me feel like, I always kind of use the analogy of like, if your eyes feel like this throughout the day, or do they feel like this, like feeling wide awake, very aware, very intentional about everything you're doing. So when I'm feeling like I've just been like drudging on, I know I need sunlight. So I know I need music. And I probably need to go like ride my Peloton or do something physical to just get get that physical exertion out to just get re-energized and refocused. And with those like 3 things, I'm solid. And I'm back to feeling really focused and motivated again.
I love that. And it sounds like you're very self-aware that what that actually looks like for you.
Yeah. And I recently discovered, like literally yesterday, went to the chiropractor for the first time. Holy cow, what a massive difference that makes. I feel like a brand new person today.
Wow. Okay. Okay. You know, I've always been interested in that. I just been a sort of concerned that they're gonna break something or whatever.
He felt he was going to do my neck last night, and apparently that's where a bunch of stuff's messed up too. And he was like, I can feel how tensed up you are. You need to relax. And he did it, and it was just like, God left my, it was insane.
Okay. Wow.
And I feel so much better today. It's just miraculous.
This is good timing then. Interviewing you with your
You have to go. You have to.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, nice. In terms of mindsets, what would you say would encompass helping you to stay, either get into balance and then maintain that balance?
Yeah, I've been asked this a couple times before. I think this kind of was instilled in me from when I was a kid. My dad, I mean, you think I'm, like I'm a disc profile, I'm a high D. And you think I'm a high D, my dad is like 30,000 leagues ahead of me. So I always had a really good mentor in that fact of always having a plan A, B, C, and D, and always being aware that at any point in time, things can go completely awry. So you need to be prepared for what your next step is going to be if that doesn't go as planned. He also really instilled in me that obviously at any point in time, who knows what happens and you leave this earth. So I've always wanted to live that every single day, if I laid my head down at night, did I leave the people around me in a better spot than I found them? So I'm constantly trying to pursue that and make sure I'm being attentive to, with the high D personality, I can tend to get really like laser focused and spearheaded, and I don't ever want to like steamroll people, which is what my personality type can do, like unconsciously. So I'm trying to constantly remind myself, how did that sound coming out? Did I steamroll anybody? Do I need to clean up, as I would say, clean up after a conversation? So, and I'm a very like transparent person, and the fact that, hey, is there something awry here? Do we need to talk about this? Did I offend you? Like, let's get on the same page. Like, I never ever want to go to bed any night if there's something awry between anybody near me or amongst me. Like, even in real estate, you can be fielding and working through 30 different contracts at once. And that's not just 30 different people. On one contract, there's 6, 7, sometimes 10 plus people that you're corresponding with every single minute for just one contract. So then if you're working on 30 different contracts all at once, it's kind of like a HUD, a heads up display like pilots use, of just this rolling checklist. So if you have just so many different things constantly rolling through your brain of like, I've got to do this, I got to do that, got to do this, I got to do that, then that's when you tend to get spearheaded and unfortunately kind of like bulldoze people on your way to checking off those checklist items. So that's when I try to be really, really self-aware of, how did that just sound coming out? Do I need to, like, am I making sure that I'm still remembering that other people don't function the same way that I do, and that they might be like, wow, that was kind of bossy, or might come across in a different way than I intended. So I'm just constantly trying to think about, leave them better than you found them, get the task done.
Wow, that's a really interesting dynamic, Sarah, and you're very, very self-aware. I mean, I mean, you I had no idea. And it's super thoughtful, and your average person is not even considering how, or maybe reflecting how their words, their actions, their thoughts are affecting other people. And I love the frame of, you want to leave every single day it better than we, and it's a nice kind of really balance between the two, because you're still accomplishing all these things, but doing it in a way that the legacy that you're leaving is meaningful, memorable, in a positive way. So it's beautiful. And I guess I always want to just take it back a step for whoever is joining us for these, in that, if they're not at a point where they're asking those questions, and perhaps at one point you were in that same boat, is there anything that you did to then be aware that that was even happening? I know for my clients, it's usually a clue is the person's reaction to you is like, okay, that's your first clue. If it's not optimal, or you feel some tension, then that's the good clue to maybe you just kind of re-look at that later that evening, journal it out, and see like what happened.
Yeah, I think, I mean, and it's so easy to see. I mean, look at what happens, maybe even just simply asking what happens to a room when you walk in. Like, how's your energy and the way you're presenting yourself or the conversation affecting all the other people around you?
I like that.
Like you said, if you're walking into a room and people are like, oh, Jesus, like they're turning away, they're ready to leave, like, then it might not be going so well.
Right. Okay.
I think energy and mindset of where you are in your own space is a huge contributor to that. And I mean, it's so infectious. Like, if you're in a really good positive space and mindset and you walk in, even if somebody's not, I mean, I guess it kind of started when I worked at the coffee shop. Working at a coffee shop in the morning, you routinely get just an onslaught of old grumpy men. So, so I would like make it a personal mission to make them smile and laugh by the time they were done with me. So just killing them with absolute kindness, and not like smothering them and like compliment sandwiches or anything, but just being infectious with a positive mindset and how quickly that can affect other people. Just like with negativity. I mean, it's even more profound when you can do it on a positive level. So I try to, like, I started that, when I was working as a coffee shop girl, and then even in the military, you just come across so many like grumpy old guys, and it's like, okay, we're going to be best friends in 5 minutes. Just wait.
I love that. Wow. What a beautiful, seriously, mindset challenge, because it's like, wait, you already know what place that they're in. And instead of being like, oh, roll your eyes, got to deal with this grumpy old guy, yours is complete opposite. Like, how can I make him smile? How can I get a laugh, or,
Yeah.
make their day? And that's beautiful. Is it something that you're teaching your kids? Because this is like awesome stuff.
Funny that you mentioned that, because I'm a very empathic person. So like I absorb what other people are going through.
Oh,
Very much so. So that's where I kind of like,
huh.
I'm also a control freak. So when I know that other people can so greatly affect me and my mindset, I kind of have to create my own boundaries and rules of like what I will and won't let affect me. Like, your bad day isn't going to ruin my day.
Yes.
Because if I'm like not at 100% in my day, then their bad day and their bad energy will like hurt me and affect me and just take me downhill really quickly.
Yes.
So my daughter, 8-year-old daughter, she's extremely spiritual, extremely like empathic. Like, it is built in and wired into that girl. Like, she's just something else. So I do have to constantly have like really thorough and forward conversations with her about what that means, and how you can't let, like, you have to be your own beam of light and kind of have your own bubble. I have a little note on my computer that says, care but don't carry. So I have to constantly remind myself of, I just care so much for some people that I then kind of like start carrying their burdens, and it can like really weigh me down.
Yeah. Wow.
So I have to teach the same thing to especially my daughter.
Okay.
And she's very, very self-aware as well. And she can pick up what's going on other people from a mile away too. So yeah, I'm constantly having to have those conversations with her of just meditating kind of mindset thing and just letting it go.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Beautiful. And again, it's kind of cool because I'm getting to know you on a whole new level. It's like you just, on the outside, it's not something you can tell that comes through. And I think you having that empathic side is so crucial to being able to help your daughter.
Yeah.
That as well. So that's awesome.
I have to definitely do it with my own husband too. But I mean, of course, the conversations look a little bit different with him. But as a spouse, I mean, I could say one thing and another person say the same exact thing, and he's going to hear it more from the other person. I think that's just how it works.
Right.
But I'm constantly having to have like motivating, aspiring, like, let's get you moving kind of conversations with him too. And even in that conversation though, I just got to the point, I'm like, maybe you just need to have your own person that you talk to. So he sees a therapist every single week, just because sometimes that's just what you need, is just your own person to bounce those thoughts and processes off.
Yeah, for sure. And I found that if people have more like past issues or trauma, therapists are fantastic. But being exposed and very immersed in the coaching world, the present day and just having that person to talk to, coaching is an also really, really good resource in case, he outgrows the therapy.
Yeah.
That might be something you guys look at. And it's becoming a bit more accepting. And I just was reviewing my husband's benefits, and most insurance benefits provide, a lot of them do provide what's called an EAP, which is an employee assistance program. So usually if they have a benefit like short or long-term disability, I'm sorry, I'm geeking out on you a little because I'm
I love it.
But if they have short, long-term disability and or life insurance provided by a company, usually those companies offer like a free EAP program. And I was just looking at benefits. I knew that you could talk to like a therapist, and you get like 3 visits per, I think it's per family member per year. I think they do them virtually, but I saw they just added coaching, and I'm like,
that's amazing.
Well,
so, I think because so many times people, I mean, I kind of view therapy and coaching as like one-in-one. I mean, like, so some people kind of have a stigma with saying, oh, I see a therapist. So, but saying that you have a coach is so much more like, aligning to finding, because some people are like, hey, I'm fine, like
Right.
I don't
Yeah, but
need
that's
this. But
yeah.
coaching is like very thorough, very positive. I mean, you
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about work-life balance. There's no faster way to get to that than one-on-one coaching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so it's really taking the version of yourself now and enhancing and upgrading is what the coaching really does. So it's yeah, I mean it really and the most common I think feedback that I get from clients is that they get like a completely different perspective and one that their close friends and family just can't give them because they're not in a neutral place. And this is really coming from the highest and best interest of what's for the client and those are around them. So
Right.
it's really fascinating. So, but that's the most common feedback I get is like, wow, like it's like a totally different perspective that you can't really get on your own. I almost describe coaching as like if you have one of those prescription bottles and the labels on the outside, you're on the inside. You can't, no matter how many times you turn around in that bottle, you are not going to be able to see what's written on the label on the outside.
Yeah.
That's what the coaching perspective gives you.
Right. And a family member is never going to give you the same amount of accountability that a coach can.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just a whole different level of, yeah, just holding them accountable on their own dreams and desires of what the perfect life balance looks for them. And um,
Yeah. And I also think like your strengths, just so I don't miss anything, um, is there anything else you wish you learned earlier in regards to, work-life balance that you wish you implemented sooner? And also feel free to totally go all geek out on like the strategies, the operationals, because that's like your forte, Sarah. So honestly, we all can just benefit from it. So
yeah,
don't feel like you
I would say
what's
the thing
that?
I wish I would have learned, or I guess accepted earlier on in my
Mhm.
role, of when I was doing like the transaction management for our team, and work life things, everything else. I thought I had to do everything
Mm.
all in one day.
Okay.
Like every single task was the
Oh my
biggest rock in
gosh.
the room.
Yes.
So really learning and accepting, I think that's the biggest part, is accepting and being comfortable with the fact that there are going to be items that roll over to the next day.
Yeah.
And you have to let that happen. You
Okay.
just have to do it. Just be really intentional with always, especially in real estate, you're just constantly having to reevaluate, okay, what's highest priority right now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
now what's highest priority? What is Van, our team leader, is always like, who's gonna die if this doesn't happen? Like, you need to be questioning yourself of like, okay, just hit those highest priority items and then redelegate the next day. Which is also a really another good point about life in general. Delegate where you can.
Mhm.
Um, we got a house cleaner, makes a huge difference. We're not like dirty people
Yeah.
whatsoever. We keep a really nice household. However, those like deep cleanings and just those
Uh,
other mundane things, um, like delegate things out where you can, because it's going to save yourself so much time and effort and memories.
mhm.
Like when I
Mm.
do have time, and like we do have weekends and evenings that aren't completely consumed by sporting events or gymnastics or groceries and all those other kinds of things, you need to be using it for creating memories and like just coming together as a family. And I don't want to have to think about going and cleaning the bathrooms.
Right.
Simple as that. So where you can afford it, even just like bi-weekly cleaning or like grocery deliveries or something like that,
Mhm.
delegate where you can, because first of all, you're saving yourself a whole bunch of time and stuff. You're giving somebody else a job and you're pouring back into your own community. Um, and you can just add them to your like list of contractors that you can share with your friends and family of like, hey, this is, yeah, I do have like a really good lawn guy and cleaner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, the other thing, so what I wish I known was just letting things go and being accepting with the fact that things can just roll over to the next day. There's power in silence. I definitely learned that from Van as well, that I'm an activator. So if an issue comes in into your life, some people just immediately want to activate, immediately want to fix it, immediately get to the root, immediately make the phone call or the text or the email, and just immediately jump on things. But there's power in just like it, almost just breathing and letting things rest for a little bit to really gather the appropriate steps and thoughts of, first and foremost, can this person that brought this fire to me figure it out themselves?
Yes.
And is it just going to like work itself out anyways? And they're going to, because so many times in this world, like other agents will bring forward like mass hysteria. What do I do with this? And sometimes you just need to let them figure it out for themselves too.
Yeah.
Because then my role and Kylie's role is very much like you're supposed to do all the things, but we're also not an agent technically. Yeah. So they have their responsibilities. We have ours. And then sometimes we're just overachievers and we end up doing the work for other people anyways. Anyway, so just letting things rest, thinking, putting a really good plan together, and then moving forward.
I love it.
Just not reacting in the moment.
Okay. Stop there. Stop. Here's this little gold. But hold on, we got to dig deeper into me. Okay. So one thing I wanted to go back to was when you talked about things rolling over the next day. And even though like from a logical standpoint, it's like you get it, but not always easy to do.
Right.
So do you have any insight that you can share around how you're able to come to terms with that and actually do it? Because it's like you get it, but it's just so much harder to do it.
Yeah. I'm a very like visual checklist person too.
Okay.
So what I tend to do is I have this thing called a boogie board. I always felt bad wasting paper. So I found this thing called a boogie board, and it's just like you can write on it. And then like if you're a checklist writing list down kind of person, you just write on it, and then you can cross things off and stuff like that. And then to erase it, to start new, there's just a little button on the top and it just clears the whole board, and then you just start new. So
is it electronic or physical?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
It's almost like a weird version of an Etch-a-Sketch.
Okay.
I don't know, it's hard to describe. But it's really good for like if you're normally like a post-it note or list type of person.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I just kind of look at everything. So, really another good point here that I do that I think a lot of people don't. Okay. I use my inbox as my to-do list.
Okay.
If it is in my inbox, it still needs something done with it. Once it is done, it is filed away and put into its appropriate folder in my email.
Got it.
So it's that satisfaction thing of being able to get a really quick visual of, okay, I only have 8 things left in my inbox because it's waiting on somebody else. It's waiting on a time thing, or I just need to circle back around to it in the next few days. So at the end of every day, I'm looking at my inbox of what is still there, what is highest priority. And then as different thoughts of like, oh, hey, I also need to do this, but it's not in my email. I'm writing it on that list on my boogie board. Okay. And I am setting everything up visually for the very next morning when I walk back in. So I immediately know where to catch back up. Because I don't know about everybody else, but when I'm clocking out at 5:00, I'm trying, not always successful, trying to turn my brain off of work.
Yes.
And I use the time, it's about 30 minutes between my office and home, to recenter myself to prepare myself for my next job, which is being wife and mom.
Nice.
So during that time, I'm either in complete silence, listening to fun, happy music, or I'm listening to like a podcast.
Okay.
So it's kind of like my me time.
Yeah.
Then I'm going into, as soon as I open the door, it's work
Right.
life, mom, craziness. Then, you know, repeat, and you're walking back in here the next day. I can forget, like mentally forget so much stuff that was so clear at 5 o'clock the prior day. So having everything already written down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
okay.
oh yeah. And I'm immediately back into the work mindset.
Okay.
So it's,
That's
I guess,
good.
just
I love that.
knowing how to quickly snap in and out of, as soon as you walk back into the office and you see your list that you wrote the night before, it's like, oh, yep. Okay. Here we go. Looking at the calendar, looking at the inbox, looking at my list, and then playing the game of prioritizing over and over and over again.
That's super helpful because it's like you're giving your brain a place to put it before you walk out the door at 5. So it's much easier to let it go. I mean, yeah, you still, some of it might still ping you a little bit, but you're also using that 30 minutes of like downtime to shift back over into, you know, and then for people who are, you know, working from home, I usually tell them, do something, a ritual like that. Maybe if you are at home, then maybe go take your dog for a walk or go exercise or do something different to shift out of it and close your office doors. And put on, or maybe put on a hat, whatever you need to do to kind of shift that energy and that mindset of, okay, I'm going into mom or dad mode and be at home mode. So that's great.
Every person's brain can only handle so much.
Right.
When you have so much data constantly coming in from all of your different roles. So you can't, it's almost like, hey, give your brain a break from trying to force it to remember all these different things. So that's why you're giving it the heads up of, hey, when my brain walks back into this new mindset tomorrow, this is how you're going to start this next, you know, hat phase of like, you're just setting yourself up for success for the next role that you're walking into.
Yes. Thank you. That's helpful. That makes sense because you're like, I think if your brain knows that it can always come back to that, there's a little bit of like satisfaction and then an easier ability to let go when you have this.
I can't expect my brain to remember every single random thought that comes in at like 8:37 p.m. of like, oh yeah, I should like make sure I do that. Like, oh, I should probably help myself out and write that down somewhere. So like put it in the calendar or put it in a notes area. Like, there's an app called, what's it called? It's called Any List. And everybody can like, so my husband and I both have that app and we use that for like a grocery list. And then we also have like another category of like to-dos. I have another one for like work things. So we're like syndicated to each other for home life things. But then I also use it for myself for when I have those random genius ideas in the shower or like late at night or something when they all seem to come. So having a place that you know you can go back to always like write down those little thoughts is super important.
Yeah. That's funny. Like I usually get my ideas in the shower too. So I actually bought like a waterproof notebook and a special pen to write in the shower. Although I haven't, I keep remembering it just in time that like I'll still jot it out on like outside the shower. So I'm like, I still think it's weird to have a notebook in the shower. So I still kind of keep it outside, but that's funny that you mentioned that.
You know, another really good idea is dry erase markers on your mirror.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
So like,
ooh, that's a good idea.
Such a great idea. We do a thing in the family. We have 1 period, 2 period, 3 period written on every bathroom mirror. So every night when you're brushing your teeth, you can look at your list mentally.
And say, wow.
Like we have a thing of like 1, 2, and 3 is what are the 3 things that you're really, really grateful for today? But you have to be like really, really specific.
Wow.
But yeah, dry erase markers on a mirror is such a great hack because you can just like put one of those markers in your top drawer or something. And every time you have like oh yeah, I need to make sure I do this when I come home. You can just write it on your mirror.
Nice. Oh, that's
And then
cool.
Windex just takes it right off.
Yeah. Awesome. The other thing I wanted to go back to, unless you have anything else to add about like letting go of things and letting them roll over, I think that you covered that, was not reacting in the moment.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. So can you talk to that piece? And that one I usually it involves centering yourself or just getting out of the heat of the moment and then coming back. That's the kind of stuff I usually recommend to most clients. But any other tools or things that are
that's I feel like that's probably my biggest thing that I'm always working on is just naturally being a fixer and an activator. This is like the main conversation that Van, my business partner, and I constantly have is he's like, I love you. And sometimes you just need to let things sit for a minute.
Okay.
And then like gather all of your information and get back to it, which 9 times out of 10, the end outcome is the same anyways.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know. It's
not always easy.
This is one that I still struggle with, but
and if you're kind of like, oh, you're good at the fixing, it's natural to just want to like dive into that.
Yeah.
And actually, as you're talking more, I'm like, because I didn't know that side of Van either. Like, I'm like, I should probably have him on the show. He's got a lot.
Because him and I are just on like all of the personality tests, and even like in real life, him and I are total yin and yang. So we balance each other out, which is also really funny because my personality types are identical to his wife's.
Really?
So her and I are like exact twins in everything.
No way.
So that's why I'm obviously called the work wife, and then she's like the real wife.
That's
because
interesting. Okay.
We just balance each other out so well, which I think you have to have. Because when he's kind of dragging on things, I'm like, hey, come on, like we need to get things going here. Let's, let's move things forward. Or, he's a very out loud thinker. I'm a very inward thinker. So we kind of balance each other out of like, hey, let's think this through together. So,
yeah, I'll have to probably ask him too. It just was like when you had shared that you said something about a system, I'm like, oh, she's got
my checklist
down.
I haven't even talked about all my checklists.
Oh, okay. Okay, go for it, Sarah.
Okay, so if you haven't heard of Trello, for everybody watching, if you haven't heard of Trello, it is like, it has a couple different like payment levels options that you can use for it. But we just use the free option. And I'm obviously through military and stuff like that, I'm extremely detail oriented kind of person. And in the career field that I was in the military, you had to carry around these like checklists, like these little pamphlet checklist things around you. And you had to go through and mark off every single checklist item that you were doing time after time after time after time. And you just they were like in little plastic sleeves.
Okay.
And you just had to use like a wax pen to mark off every time. And then when you were done, you went back through, you rechecked everything. Did I do this? Did I do that? Etc. All the way down before you left that plane and before you put, somebody's lives in danger. You better make sure that you did everything by the book perfectly. So I kind of brought that over from the military aspect of, if you're going to do anything in life more than once, you should have a checklist for it, especially in a career standpoint. Because complacency happens and errors happen when you just are being lazy and you're not paying attention. And that's always the biggest hang up. So protect yourself, set yourself up for success, and just do those checklist items and just visually mark that off every single time you complete those same items time after time after time.
Okay.
So in real estate, there's so many things that have to be done with every single step of the way, let alone a whole entire transaction. So with Trello, I created a checklist program that is super easy to replicate into every single new transaction that you have. So whether it's a buyer, next question is, well, is it an all cash buyer? Is it a buyer that has lending? Is there like a rental in place? And same for sellers. What type of sale is it? Is it like an investment property? Is it just a normal sale? Is it an estate sale? Like what's going on? And each one of those, it has their own template checklist system. So if a new normal seller contract comes in, then it's just a, hey, I'm going to copy this one and put in the like street address, and then bam, there's all of your checklist items that you have to do, which could be like upwards of 300 different things that you have to do. So when you have just such a huge array of things going on, being able to visually go into each different transaction and see, oh, hey, on this one, an inspection is due today, or like, hey, this process is coming up soon. Where are you at on that? And so it's just it's taking all the pressure off of you by just follow your system. If you have a system for everything, then so much less can go wrong.
Yeah, it's funny because what I'm thinking of is now knowing about your background, and like your checklist used to have to be, they're like life and death. If you don't check one out, that could be, massive consequences. So almost kind of like seeing that having to let go is probably even more challenging for someone like you, the background, because it's almost like been ingrained in your training.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if, anyone in the audience would have a similar kind of parallel, but maybe just OCD or other tendencies. It could be something else. It doesn't have to be a military background. But is there any advice you would give to that person to kind of help them ease off that, okay, you can breathe. It's not necessarily life or death, but it's almost like a reprogramming, so to speak.
Yeah. I was fully under the unconscious mental belief that if I didn't get every single checklist item done in every single day, I was a straight up failure. Like I was failing myself and every single person around me.
Yeah.
And that was really heavy for me. And it would destroy me. Like I had zero work-life balance. I would simply work 24/7. I was just simply changing locations of where I was working.
Yes.
Because I would just bring my laptop home.
Right.
And as soon as the kids and my husband were in bed, then I would just continue working. Like I had no sense of when to shut it off.
Okay.
So I think
what changed for you? How did that change?
letting things go undone on purpose so I could realize the next day that life went on.
Okay. Wow.
And nobody was kicking and screaming and I wasn't getting fired. Like,
okay.
So
okay, almost like an experiment to see, like, let's see what actually happens and prove to yourself.
And surprise,
you're gonna be
I
okay.
didn't die.
Wow. Okay. I love that. That's interesting. Thanks.
It definitely took some time though.
Yeah.
And there's still times that I just have to tell myself 5 p.m. is shut off. Keep track of time and be prepared that when it hits 5 o'clock, you need to shut it down and you need to walk out and you need to be comfortable with where everything is at.
Okay. And you have to remind yourself, right? Like a couple times before you get to the 5.
Right.
Wait, shut down, keep track of it. And you're comfortable where you're at. Yes, I love that.
I mean, and if you're like a super task-oriented person, like I said before, if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. So put the next item of travel time home from 5:01 to 5:30, and then just set those routines of hey, no, I'm no longer on work brain. I need to be on personal brain, and I need to stick to this routine to give yourself some grace.
Yeah, but when you were kind of doing the 24-hour work thing, whether just a change of scenery, I mean, was there anything either that happened on the external that made you be like, whoa, that's like an aha, I got to stop, or over time you just realize you couldn't sustain it, and then like what helped prompt you to to shift and make that change? Because that's the part where, and the letting go thing, that's an awesome tip, that's noted, but anything else that could help with, or that was really it, that was the biggest thing that made you be able to be like, okay, I can literally set it and forget it at 5 p.m.
Yeah. I would say my biggest aha, like slap in the face moment was when my kids were super, super young, being like, Mommy, we wish you didn't have to work all the time.
Yeah.
We wish you would come play with us.
Oh.
And then seeing my kids replicate me talking on
Yeah.
the phone constantly,
Yes.
or constantly
Oh.
being on the computer instead of replicating me, like, I don't know, doing something
Yes.
fun in the house. It was so much more like they visualized me as constantly working.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge, like,
Yeah.
and that hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had moments like that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then of course, just the friction that you ultimately end up causing between you and your partner, of just, you have to be present, like being present where you're at in the moment is huge. So I had to trick myself for a while into acting like I was present and not thinking about work.
Okay.
So I had to trick myself for a while until I really started to get to the, okay, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to put my phone face down. I'm going to stop with seeing the notifications of what's going on. Everybody's going to survive, and I can be present in this moment.
Okay. No, that's helpful, because I think it sounded like the main thing that was stopping you was the belief that something bad would happen if you don't tend to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part, because I find some of the clients I have, they still have that attachment of like,
Yeah.
if I don't do this, and so that's important. And I think you just proving yourself little by little, and the mindset, like almost the reprogramming of your conscious and subconscious mind, of that, at 5, you got to stop, and here's your reminder. And it probably kept you on track, more productive. But then, hey, you got to be comfortable with where you're at when it comes to 5. Like, you're like mentally preparing so that when 5 hit,
Mm-hmm.
you're ready. You're mentally ready to walk out. And yeah, maybe it didn't happen overnight. You took some practice, but you got there. And that's okay. Thank you. This is so helpful, Sarah.
It's completely unrealistic to put that expectation on yourself that you can so quickly and vastly adjust your normal tendencies to being a completely different functioning person.
No.
Like, that's not realistic.
No, exactly.
Come in time.
Yeah, for sure. This has been amazing. So I wanted to maybe just go through the lightning round real quickly, and then if, probably just one final wrap-up question. Before we even go to that, is there anything you enjoy doing when you're not working, and how do you create the time to do it?
Under construction. I mean, I'm always still trying to find that. Obviously, I think it's, I think that evolves. I think that evolves so much, because you're never the same person. You're constantly evolving and changing, and your roles in life are constantly changing. So previously it was, I loved going to concerts. I would go to concerts just every other night, like when I was single and stuff. I still love music, but to put me into a tight, compact room with a whole bunch of young, drunk people sounds like insanity to me now. It's like, don't do it to me. And so now I just find peace and happiness in just being with my little family, and just being at peace and not having anything to do. So we as a family really like trying new restaurants, and we have like this fun little way of like rating every restaurant of like,
Oh,
okay, what did we think about the drinks? What did we think about the environment and the decor? What did we think about the appetizers? And then at the same time we're exploring different parts of our valley, like the downtown scene, the Caldwell, you know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
spreading around. So
Uh,
that's like
yeah,
another
that's
thing. And
fun.
yeah.
Man, Sarah, I gotta say, I really love that you have this neat way that you're approaching how you and your husband are running your family. And it's like you've got the part where the marriage, like the kids are not everything, right? But yet at the same time, you have this beautiful theme of everyone's including and everyone contributes. And it's this
Yes.
family, cohesive, collaborative unit that I love. And I'm like, ooh, you're giving me like more inspiration. Like, how can we integrate that into our family? And I just love that. So, I mean, we do some things, you know, we went to Shenandoah one weekend and stuff like that, but it's just,
Yeah.
and we do have them help out, but it's not as like structured with
No.
your popsicle sticks. But hey, I mean, and that's the other thing for everybody listening. It's not too late. You can still take
Oh yeah.
any of these one tips that Sarah is sharing so generously and just take one thing and just
Yeah.
run with it, you know, and
And
try
I
it out.
know I
Yeah.
know tons of people that have implemented in their own ways the same popsicle stick thing for
Uh-huh.
their own morning and night routines.
Okay.
There's a gal that's at our same brokerage. She runs that on like on steroids. Like you would not believe. She has a cup of sticks for like she has 3 different cups, like
Yeah.
one for every part of her day. And it's just like
Oh, wow. Okay.
insane how she runs
Interesting.
those kinds of things, and
Yeah.
good for her because that's how
Yeah.
some people need
Yes.
that structure made for them.
Yeah.
So that's like a really good way to do that, and you can do the same thing
Yeah.
at work too, like
Yeah.
just having that text. Like I feel like there's so many people are trying to get away from, you know, these.
Yes.
They want the paperback books, they
Yeah.
want the magazines now. They're trying to get back to like the tangible items
Yeah.
and having that tangible joy and satisfaction and the
Yeah.
endorphins of picking it up and bam, there goes that task and it's done.
Yeah.
Like I think people thrive on that. So whatever works best for people, they
Yeah.
need to tap into their own, you know, what brings them joy kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this has been amazing, Sarah.
Oh,
So really appreciate it.
good.
So, favorite book recommendation?
Book?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. I'm a huge fan of Gary John Bishop.
Oh, I haven't heard of him. Okay.
He's
Cool.
incredible. He's great to look at. He's great to listen to. He's this I think he's Irish.
Okay. Oh, is he the guy that says on you know what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Because I have that on audio when I started to listen to it. Okay, cool, cool. Because
Yes.
I've heard of that book.
His
All right.
books, all of his books are
Nice.
absolutely incredible. His
Okay.
podcasts, his
Okay.
anything that he touches is just
Yeah.
incredible. He
Okay.
just I'm a foul-mouthed pirate most of the time. So I really connect with
Oh,
the
that's
fact that
perfect.
he's very
Yes.
forward, very
Yeah.
just driven and
Yeah.
like get in charge of your own life again,
Yeah.
kind of perspective,
Yeah.
and that tough love kind of
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
So I really like that. Anything that he does.
Okay,
Uh,
perfect. And then most admired person and why, and it could be him too, if you want to expand on that.
oh,
Or if it's somebody else.
I don't know. I don't think I have a really set person. I really
Okay.
find um, examples on what to do and what not to do to like every person I come across.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
I think everybody,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody has
Okay.
their own
I
things.
like
I'm like,
that.
dang,
Yeah.
they do that really well. Like
Yeah.
that's incredible. I need to like reach
Yeah.
towards that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic because there's the part that, yes, that's awesome to use for inspiration, but not to go down.
Or like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Or, yeah. Or the compare slogger. You know, that's the part to just
Yeah.
get, you know, be cautious of for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then advice you wish you'd give your younger self. That's the last lightning question. And that could be on any topic. It doesn't have to be work-life balance.
Really
You did a
hard
lot
one.
of good, cool things, right? Like, especially like going to join the military and see the world. And I don't know, I thought that was awesome. And I'm like, so
Yeah.
cool. I got to hear the whole story from you.
Yeah, I think I was kind of listening into all of the, life advice ever since I was really young,
Wow.
all the way up until I joined the military. So while I was in the military is when I was just like, you know what? Be taking advantage of every moment that you're in. So that's,
Love that.
I guess that's the main thing that I wish I knew it before, and I really like took it and ran with it, especially when I was young and single of like, hey, you better live it up while you can.
That's right. Oh, wow. Gosh. And then it's so cool seeing you take a lot of this wisdom, both from your dad and whatever you learned growing up, and then kind of distilling it and maybe chunking it down to your kids level, which is really, it's fun to see that. And I guess final question, anything else in terms of resources, tools, other things that made a big difference for you on the work-life balance front that you want to add? I mean, you gave so much, so I
I think being lucky enough to have an amazing mentor that really motivates you and lifts you up in a really positive way, and not like, for me, being able to have Van really see my potential and lift me up in that and kind of give me that freedom and not micromanage or try to stuff me into a box, really made me realize that there's no ceiling. Like, you don't, to being able to like realize that any ceiling that you're that you have is self-induced. So I think having him there really like pushing me of like, okay, what's your goals? How are you going to get it done? Let's make it happen. Like, make it bigger than what you think you can handle and just go for it. So really having those people around you and surrounding yourself with those type of people is a really amazing tool to have. The people.
That is awesome. Sarah, so tell us where people can find you and Van.
So our team handle pretty much across all avenues is Front Porch Boise. And then my personal, so that's on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, Front Porch Properties. Super easy. We have, since I'm a veteran and so is Van, we have the American flag on everything because we're super patriotic. My personal handle on Instagram is Sarah.Lett.
Oh, cute. Yeah. And you can, I'll put all of that, you can get it to me and I'll put it in the show notes as well and link it in the bottom. But thank you for just sharing all these amazing tips and all of your learnings with everybody. Super helpful. And a lot of the things I'm like, well, I got to go back and implement some of these, especially the family focus of like, all right, how can we do a little bit of, a little of everything. And I just,
I mean, let's be honest, if things are awry within your family, you can't focus on anything else.
It's true.
So,
yeah. Maybe we're in a good spot where I'm like, oh, we could do that a little bit better. And that sounds like we could do a little bit better. So, always a work in progress in all areas, right?
Oh, yeah. Same here.
Well, Sarah, thank you. And I really enjoyed getting to know you even better.
Me too.
And thank you for doing it. And I'm definitely going to have Van on as well. I'm like, I don't know.
I'll put in a good word.
Thanks, but yeah, I'm going to have Van on.
Yeah, he's amazing.
All right. Definitely stay tuned for our next episode. These come out once every 2 weeks. We'll probably do, a dozen or so of them. And then I thank our audience for watching as well, and enjoy the rest of your week.